Hello everyone, this is a follow-up on the second video of the egg dropping. A lot's happened since the last video. The machine is that you saw in the previous video is behind me, and lots have changed on this machine. I've improved a lot of the different parts that actually made it a little bit more faster and more reliable and easy to reset. And then I went on to create the second version of the machine that's behind me here. That's the version 2.0 that I was talking about, and it's a lot more stable and more reliable than the version 1.0 that's basically over there. But this version is much more complicated and much more difficult to build. But it's more reliable and more stable. And I will quickly go through all the machines and a lot more things to cover. There is a lot of different parts that I need to go through. I'll try to minimize and not waste any time. The first thing that I actually changed up with the machine, well, not these versions that are actually here, but something that I discovered later on was that when you're actually pushing the rails, this is the previous version, there is instances where the rail duping actually happens, and there is instances where it doesn't. When you're pushing it when you're putting the power source on that side, you're actually duping the rails like you saw, and then if you actually put the rails on the power source on the other side, then you don't get the duping. There is no duping here, so that's because of the update error that I was talking about, and it's a little bit confusing and causes a lot of mess. So it's actually better to put rails all along, power rails, and then you put power source on either side. That way you don't get any duping. You get reliable power source, and you don't need to have spacing of rails and power rails every so often. It just makes it a little more reliable. The EDDxample in my last video showed actually you can somehow reliably get the rails to blink, and that way you can actually travel along on the rails and hold right click without using auto clickers, which you need for the old machine. And you can actually stay on the rails without needing any clickers or anything like that. But the problem is if you're actually placing the observers, you can't go fast enough. There is some buggy thing about placing observers, so you need to push the observers in, and thereby you can actually travel really slowly on the rails, on the power rails, and hold right click, place the eggs without using any auto clickers. But I mean, the speed of the minecart is so slow, and then you have this problem where if you're traveling that slow, then it's just might as well just use an auto clicker. You can actually get, as you just saw there, you can easily see that the regular place observers blink, and the piston is actually firing. But if you push the piston, push the observer in, it actually fires much faster. Something about placing observers causes them to be much slower, and I'm not sure why. And I figured that maybe you can actually utilize the half tick as well on the observers, so you can have the rail off for 1 tick and then on for 3 ticks, and that way you can use the pistons pushing the observers, and the other side you can actually have the half tick where you push the pistons using butt pistons. And that is 4 ticks and that is 3 ticks. That way you can get the observers to be off by 1 tick, and they're on for 2 ticks, they're off for 2 ticks. Using this trick, you can actually get the that observer to be on, this rail to be off for just 1 tick instead of being off for 2 ticks. And that way you can actually push this whole system forward, and you get a really reliable blinking that is a little bit more reliable than that version over there. And if you just go in there using minecart like this, it's a little bit faster, just a little bit faster than regular blinking. I'm not sure if it's visible. Yeah, I guess it's visible. I mean, comparing that to this is like microscopic speed. This is much reliable and faster. It's almost half the speed of regular rails, but maybe less. But That way you can actually build this machine over here, which is like a prototype, but I never actually used it because I'm just using auto clicker. But this way you can actually activate the machine, and then we actually need to make the machine detect and push forward. And all the rails should be blinking. Wait. Oh, it's just the render English. And if you're on the minecart and traveling, now you can actually place the eggs using manual clickers. You just hold right click, or you can use the F11 trick. Yeah, obviously this machine isn't fully, like it's a prototype and never been used. There is like parts missing here. I need to fix that for the world download. But it should work reliably, and it's like for people that don't want to use auto clickers. And this machine doesn't have any furnaces that the original machine had. This one has like proper furnaces and everything. This part over here needs proper furnace alignments. There is like a furnace that needs to go somewhere around here. I don't know. Probably a way to figure that out so that you can actually get the whole machine, the whole part of the machine to move backwards. One major improvement that I actually did on that machine over there, I looked at Peter Jiangs' video about double directional bud chains, and he showed something called the breadboard, and that's this machine over here, where you can actually push the machine forward and reliably get an entire row of pistons to fire at the same time, which is really good because I used the old version. The old version basically had the method that was just unidirectional. This method actually works in both directions. You can push it on that direction and... Oh, yeah. Yeah, I forgot to turn this piston off. But it works in both directions and it's really reliable. That way you don't need to actually tear down half the machine, which I was forced to do on our old version. That way you can get an entire row of double directional bud chains on top, and using the furnace trick you can reset the machine compared to the old version in less than 20 minutes. And other tricks that I figured out, that you can make that machine over there, or basically the one we were standing on top of, this one is actually as reliable as the version 2.0, but I mean, it's all up to one's own. If this machine is too complicated to, that machine over there is too complicated to build, then this one is just as good. But you need to actually use this machine as 5 times instead of just using it once, where the advantages of using the 2.0 is. This is the front section of the machine. You attach this front section on this side, on the left side. There's a like cutout of it because that section over here, that section can't be pushed backwards. That section is actually reversible, but not this one. So this whole thing has to be rebuilt every single time. So that I've actually put it over here as a demonstration what parts that actually needs to be rebuilt. The only thing that needs to be rebuilt is basically this part. I'll show it over here where this part of the machine actually, which parts of the machine actually needs to be cut out. So I cut out everything on the left side over here, and there's a couple of blocks missing that needs to be removed. Yeah, that part that actually was on the left side has to be removed. There is no way to actually salvage that when you want to push it backwards. Then you need to put an engine over here. I'll build that quickly. You need a fairly slow engine on this side because the machine needs to sort of update, and this is a fast enough engine. I don't know. I never checked if there is a faster engine that is needed, but generally you don't need a faster engine than this. I mean, it's just fast enough. You activate it, and this whole machine should push forward. Yeah, something broke there. So basically using that engine, this thing should now forcibly stop against these furnaces. There we go. And when this machine has stopped against these furnaces, it actually has been pushed in a way that it's caused gaps and everything. I showed it in the last video. So you remove this machine over here, this engine over here. Now the machine is actually in reverse mode. You need to go to the other side where there is already a prepped engine that is waiting for the machine. And then you need to activate it over here. And this is how you reverse the machine. It's much faster than the previous version where you had to tear down half the stuff that was on top. You had to rebuild much more, and there was a lot more shulkers that need to replace. Tons of rendering glitches all over the place. Oh yeah, there is furnaces missing. Yeah, that's not good. Yeah, I need to fix this for the world download. This version of the machine seems to be a little bit... Yeah, that wasn't supposed to happen. Ah. Yep, well, it's supposed to work. It's gonna work for the world download at least. When the machine has reached this point, the only thing you need to do basically, except for this part of the machine breaking, is that the front section over there needs to be basically attached here in the front, and you end up with the original machine with everything working. I made also a manual version of the machine where you just run around. You can walk on top of these stairs, and then you just walk up here and place the eggs, and like this. And when you reach when you finish this row, you actually place the eggs here. Well, pretend these pistons are eggs, and then you go and stand on top of the eggs, and then you place the eggs on the next row while standing on this row. So you just place a bunch more. And then you do it 5 times because there is 5 layers, and that way you can actually remove all the layers at once. That way when you reach the last layer, there is a trapdoor here. Then you just activate the trapdoor. Lazy chunk detector activates. Now it's basically idiot proof where you can't activate it again, and you just fly off. When you fly off, this lazy chunk detector detects when it's in a lazy chunk and pushes forward. There is a light that blinks over here. When that light blinks, that's basically telling you that this machine has finished pushing forward. I made it so that it's modular. You could make it more efficient, but I made it modular instead so that you can actually make this machine longer, but it takes longer for the whole machine to propagate, and basically you have to wait longer for each time where the egg dropping happens. Now when that light has blinked, you can like, I don't know, you probably want to run off in that direction. Come back when you see the light. You come back and you place your next row of eggs, and because there is eggs being crushed here, you can actually go and pick up your eggs, and so you can actually pick up the eggs and salvage the eggs, so you don't need to actually lose them. So the manual machine is actually really nifty. There is a lazy chunk detector here with a manual trigger and everything. So I carved it out if someone else wants to use it for some other project. Yeah, this is the manual version at least. Just as an example of what can happen if some areas of the machine doesn't get properly egg dropped, because sometimes you get patches. I can show it in survival where you get like eggs that actually haven't crushed the bedrock, so you need to build one of these simple lazy chunk detectors. Provided it here with banners and everything, so you just place the eggs on top, and then you can actually hold shift while you're placing eggs. So if I just give myself some eggs, that way you can actually place an egg on these banners, then hold shift, and you can actually place the eggs against each other. Well, sometimes they still teleport, but if you hold shift, you can actually place an egg against another egg, so that it's much easier to place the eggs. When you're done, you place the sand block against that piston over there, and yeah, when that detects the lazy chunk, the eggs sort of drop and the banners sort of break, the eggs drop, gets a bunch of bedrock to be crushed. This is the big version of the machine, and this was a really complicated build, very very complicated. I had a lot of problems with a lot of parts of the machine, and ETA helped me with the initial design of the pistons. Then there was I went forth and back on how to fix it. Eventually, I had to draw inspiration from Peter Jiang. I think I carved out this little thing. I call it crab logic. It looks like a guardian from StarCraft, like flying crab thingy. But this machine over here basically is a piston tape, where it detects when the eggs are being placed, so that after 10 detections, it actually pushes the machine forward. This is a lazy chunk detector that is reliable for working in lazy chunks. So you can actually push this lazy chunk detector in a lazy chunk, which is what you couldn't do with that version over there, which is really good. It took me a lot of attempts to make this machine work, and you can actually activate it and deactivate this version without pushing it forward, which is also a really good design flaw that that machine over there, that the lazy chunk detector over there had. So you can actually push this lazy chunk detector wherever you want, and after you've basically you want to lazy chunk detect, then you activate it, detect it, and do whatever you want. Comparing to that one over there, where it's just the one that is like over here, where it's every time you push it forward, where it starts detecting, and when it's pushed forward, it's finished. It's like you have to push it one more forward again to start detecting again. So that's a huge upgrade. And then down bottom here is a bunch of pistons. Getting a bunch of pistons to be able to be pushing forward and activate was a huge challenge. Making it work reliably and making it work with butt pistons was even worse. And making it so that parts of this thing is pushing forward because slime is sticking to blocks and makes parts of the machine unmovable, so you have to move parts before you move other parts. Yeah, it's a mess. It's a mess. That's that's basically it. It's a mess. And this like if the piston part down bottom was complicated, the the trigger of the start machine was even worse. Just see the just to see the pistons fire. What happens is like there is an observer here that faces this piston, activates both of these. Then there is an observer there that redstone powers this block and bud powers these two. So and that's tileable and pushable, and you can fire it stationary. So you can fire these pistons without pushing it forward, and that was required to make like if you want to like drop eggs several times in the same spot and like remove them afterwards. And that was like a huge requirement. And then there's like a line here that it basically activates and pushes forward and pushes backward. And you can place the eggs, then it retracts, so you can actually you can place the eggs and then you can like release the eggs. And then there is lazy chunk detector up here that basically detects the eggs when to sort of release the eggs. There is like a drum here. This line over here is a drum that decides, that's like pushing forward and backwards to detect when the lazy chunk detector should start and when the lazy chunk detector have finished. So these two pistons sort of face each other so that they push against each other. There is like a start section with like this piston over here needs to be firing in a specific pattern. So when the player is actually going above this detector, it starts the lazy chunk detector, and then this row needs to be pushed forward so that you can actually place the eggs. But the pistons down below shouldn't fire, so that there is lag caused by the player that's trying to place the eggs. The pistons should only fire to remove the eggs when the player is exiting the machine, and that's where this section of the machine is like here for. And making a bud detector, like is a massive pain. You would imagine just facing an observer into that piston over there, and you're just done. But that wasn't easy at all. It was like you can't do that. You have to push blocks against it and whatnot. It's a mess. It's a huge mess. And making all of that work together was like, yeah, a huge challenge. But it works. Now it works. And it's much more sensitive. But it's much faster as well. It's faster. You can't be in the area when this machine is running. The only player that actually is egg dropping has to be in the area. If someone else kind of wanders into this area, it's going to break the machine. So, well, it doesn't break the machine. It just wastes a bunch of eggs. You might actually break the machine. So you better not be in the area. No one else should be in the area when this thing is running. Or well, you could be in the area, but you have to always be behind the guy that is placing the eggs. So if he's actually inside of the machine, it's all good. But when he's traveling to go to the docking station, you better be behind him. Otherwise, it's going to break the machine. The last thing I wanted to show just in the video is the docking stations. It was a huge upgrade where before they were spaced 67 blocks apart, or 69, I don't remember. But I looked into the Minecraft code. There is very little information about momentum, but something about regular rails is very unknown. Well, probably someone out there knows about it. But you can actually gain momentum on your minecart, and then you can actually travel 175 blocks without needing a single power rail, and you don't actually lose the maximum speed until 175 blocks. But you need 13 power rails back to back, and then you need every 175 blocks just 11 powered rails, and then you can travel another 175 blocks again. And in my case, I didn't want to do 175. I just did 156. But just using that trick, I mean, placing a little bit more powered rails and having the docking station over there having 11 powered rails, you can space these docking stations so much more further apart. That makes the whole building of the rail system a lot more efficient. And another huge advantage of like redesigning this docking station to make it so that there is the shulker unloader. That way the shulkers can be sort of put into this one chest, and everything has to be just filled once. Whereas before I had to sort of place a shulker on top of each hopper, which was kind of stupid. And that way you can just put the shulkers here, and then they sort of spread out across these droppers. There's droppers here, and they drop on top of the player, and that way you can actually have a lot more eggs stored in each drop station. But you're actually traveling along these drop stations. The problem is that when you've sort of gone to the next drop station, there is no way to detect it, so I added a redstone line to make sure that when you actually reach the next drop station, it stops this drop station from dropping eggs. And that way it was a huge upgrade. And obviously when you want to start dropping eggs, you need a huge line where you just don't need to drop eggs, because that's the start of the machine. So when you start dropping eggs, you don't need a dropping station. So this section over here is just the front section, and this section over here is just for the area that you actually are dropping eggs. In the previous video, I think it got cut out in this part of the creative server. This is the SciCraft creative server, and this is where the whole thing got started. I think this is the first version of the machine, and I think I worked on the first ever lazy chunk detectors that was sort of that I brought into this world. I think this was ETAS, or it's somewhere around here. I don't know where it is. And then I had the first machine over here with the simple but systems, and obviously I'm using netherrack as a scaffolding block when I'm building. And then there is like this old version of the machine that has been finished and ready here. And then I figured out that you can actually improve that, and there's a bunch of more rails in this direction over here. There's like some stuff that I worked on over here with the egg dropping, the first iterations, and this is where the iterations of getting the breadboard into the build, the Jiangs breadboard, and I figured that I can make it even more efficient. And this is where the rails are. And I think it's it's somewhere around here that the previous video was recorded. Some the dropping stations and everything. And I think I'll fly off in the distance where the new V2 has been designed. It's around here where me and Ita started to work on the crushers, and it dawned on me that it's not as a easy project that like trying to figure out a way to get the row of pistons to work, because you need to have a row of pistons properly firing, and like various iterations of the piston pushing didn't work out because yeah, it didn't work out because of different configurations didn't working as it was supposed to. Then it hit me that you can actually put like an observer facing into the pistons and then one that is actually facing down. And from there, I started to figure out different designs and ended up something like this. And then I had to get the timings right because the timings were all about getting the correct piston to fire at the correct time. Otherwise, yeah, if you didn't get the timing right, you will get like pistons all of a sudden being pushed where it's not supposed to, and it causes a bunch of mess. And instead of getting like a solid wall here, you get like a bunch of pistons in a misfired, like and some of them doesn't push forward, some of them just get misaligned, and it just causes a complete mess. Um, and then I came up with something like this, where I attached the bottom section to the top section. Then figuring out a way to get the bottom section to actually update properly, because getting that little block over here to stay behind and getting these two observers and that sticker piston to actually be placed properly was like a huge like project. Took like a day or 2 days to figure out. At some point, I was kind of not as optimistic about getting some stuff figured out. Then, when stuff got figured out, still stuff didn't work. Like this is a failed attempt. Whereas I don't know which version it is. I think it's test. I don't know. There's like different versions. That's the version C, and there is like version D, and it goes on and on and on. And I think at some point, when I figured things out, I had to attach it to the start section of the machine, and then getting the lazy chunk detector to be upgraded, because the lazy chunk detector has to stay stationary and be able to be used. Getting all these triggers to work wasn't easy at all, because some slime will be extended when it's not supposed to be extended. Some slime will be in a has to be pushed, or like this piston over here needs to extend this slime before everything moves forward, and making that work, yeah, having an extended piston with an observer. I mean, there is so much things that are happening in just these few blocks that are just causing a massive mess. I think it's like one of the most like insane parts of the machine, that like trying to get this part of the machine working was like the bigger challenge than designing everything else. Everything else is just copy paste. And I think I iterated through the machine, and somewhere around here, I figured that I need to remove that one slime because it's gonna stick to netherrack, and that's where this whole thing just had to rearrange a bunch of blocks going from that end to that end, and that's where I ended up with this machine over here. This is like a test bed. I'm trying to test out and figure out a way to get it to work. This is another version. Yeah, all of these. And then there's like the end section as well that needs to be detecting the last placed block that no the last placed what is it called, the egg, so that it detects that it's detected it, and the piston tapes moves forward and knows when to push the machine forward, because you need to remove all the 5 layers. getting all these to work, and I think this is a version where I wanted to put the piston tape next to the what is called the laser chunk detector, but it didn't work out. And this is the final version where the different parts of the scaffolding are putting in place. And over here is a entire set of the machine put together, put back together, a functioning part of the machine with scaffolding, and here is the functioning machine without scaffolding. And if I teleport to this observer, through this portal, uh, this is the first time I tested the machine, and you can see that it worked perfectly. And it's a smaller version, it's not as wide, and there's even point failures where there's single points of failures that the machine didn't place the eggs properly, and yet the machine didn't crash, and that was like a successful run, giving it like a green go for building it on survival. I think it's over here where I can actually show the machine being pushed forward. I'm gonna reset the machine. I think it's working. Yeah, everything is put in place. Yep, and we can just go to the other end. And this is a functioning machine, just a little bit shorter. And if you activate it over here 5 times, this is the last time. This time when I update it, it fires an entire chain of instant wires up top. Those propagate down and to these slime bros, and they pull a bunch of slime. These pulls a bunch more slime. Then it reaches this back end. These push the rails, and then there is an entire row of slime that needs to be pushed forward. And getting the timing to work out down below is just, yeah, it's an entire level of slime stone on its own. It's just nuts. But getting it to work was like a big challenge. But making you don't work on a huge machine like this. You take it out in parts and you get one section to work. And when you get the section to work, you start to figure out a way to compact it, because it didn't look like this before. It looked somewhat similar to. It looked somewhat like this, and this was the first version, and going from this to that. Yeah, I removed a bunch of slime that I realized that I didn't need, and there was like iterations of getting it from this slime, removing a bunch of slime, and I ended up with something like this, and then going from that to something like even more compact, and then I wanted to figure out to remove that one slime at the very first beginning, and yeah, that's what all this is about. Just go to the nether portal where I've actually set up all these machines ready to be actually tested. So you can actually go to the world download. Just take the nether portal. When you reach the other side, well, I'm lagging a lot for some reason. I guess I had to reduce my render distance. There we go. Set it to render distance 16 because otherwise the machines will not work. And there's a manual dropper here, and you can see it over here. If you set it to render distance 16, then all these machines should be properly set up. And this is the machine I was talking about previously. And what I was talking about is like when you're actually placing the eggs, is like you stand here, and then you go like right click, and you just place a bunch of eggs. And when you've reached the last part, you start the machine. And there is signs here that actually can show you how far you need to go. F3 and G to get the grids. 1, 2, and you just follow along until you reach 15 grids. Here, now you turn around, and I'm using Optifine so I can actually zoom. So you can see those lamps blinking. When they have blinked, you can move back. And now the machine has pushed forward. Obviously I didn't place the eggs so that this machine will cause an issue. But there is eggs everywhere. Now you can actually pick up the eggs so that you can actually salvage your eggs. obviously there should be a row of eggs here, and now there isn't because I didn't place any eggs on top. And if you do push the machine forward and you didn't place the eggs, it's gonna cause a massive problem. Then you need to sort of rip out parts of the machine, place a bunch of banners, a detector, remove the bedrock that wasn't removed, and then you can continue. So it's just don't do that. Don't make a foolish mistake of leaving out some spots here and there. Make sure you place every single spot. This is the version of the machine that actually has been seen before. Like it's what we saw in the overworld. It's the version 1.0, and then I've set it up here if anyone wants to try it out. There is a couple of netherrack. I need to fix it up for the world download. You just basically get a minecart. You start off right here, and if you want to go into survival and try it out, you need to basically place you need to fill your inventory. There needs to be not a single gap of like something that needs to go into your like inventory. So don't put eggs there. Put, I don't know, random stuff, and then you need to have eggs in your offhand and your main hand, and it needs to be filled up to 64 items on both offhand and the main hand. Aim like it says over here, and then you just click forward and you start the machine. I think I've shown it in a video, and it's like a 125 strip, and it takes a lot of time to finish this. There is no eggs in this dropping station. There is netherrack here that needs to be removed, but you can get the gist. I mean, if you really want to try this thing out, just do it in creative world where you actually don't need to like waste your inventory. This is just a prototype, just as a proof of so you can see how it works. And one last thing I need to show, what I think I never shown on the video, is that when you've reached the last part of the place where you place the eggs, if you want to stop like right here, you don't want to remove this last layer, you need to basically stop the rails here, and then you need to make it bend here. So there is like a gap in between the last row and like, yeah, you can basically see what I'm talking about. Like there is a gap here, and that's for the regular 1.0. This is 2.0, and this machine is actually 2.0. I know there's mushrooms floating. That's because I used MCEdit. I mean, I was too lazy. But I've set up the 2.0 over here. It needs to float one block above the netherrack, and then you need to have removed like a section of the bedrock already with a manual dropper. It's been placed here and it's ready to be used. Basically, the manual dropper is here just to remove the bedrock so that you can actually put them to the 2.0 inside of a trench. It needs to go into the trench. And then when it's starting, you just start just like the old other version 1.0, where you start over here, aim in the same direction, just do the same, the whole thing, the same thing. And when you're bouncing forth and back, this is the docking station, where what I was talking about in overworld. This is the docking station. It's much bigger because yeah, I figured that part out. Obviously, there is like the full rails that I showed where there is no duping because of the trick that I like discovered later. And this is the thing I was actually talking about here. This part, because you're starting the machine over there, you don't need to have dropping stations. So you need to have the regular rail with the regular docking station over here, and that's the only one in the front section that you need to have it. And then after you want to start dropping eggs, from this point on, you need to have the regular dropping stations where you have these dropping stations with the redstone line that tells when you've reached this dropping station to deactivate that one. Obviously, because this is the last dropping station, this one over here, there is no need for redstone line. So you don't need to have redstone line, and there is like parts missing on this left side, so you don't need to have that part because this machine or this dropping station never will be told to stop dropping eggs. And as the 1.0 over there, still you have that bend thing over here. When you reach this point, you need to bend and sort of drop off. Make sure that you're facing north. this machine will only work if you're facing north. There is no other directions. If you this you could actually make it so that it faced west. I don't know which directions, like, but the problem is this dropping station, it only works if you're facing north. If you want to figure out if it's possible to face west or the other direction, then you need to fiddle around with the this lower section of this dropping station. Before I forget, this version 2.0 basically needs the left side cleared out. At least one layer of bedrock needs to be removed. There is a slime here, this one over here. That one will be stuck to the netherrack if there is a netherrack here. This one as well. And maybe, yeah, this one. So there is like a couple of netherrack that needs to be cleared. If in case that you're not, if you don't have a trench on the left side, you need to at least remove these two layers, well, the top as well, but you need to remove these two layers. Or if you're like really stubborn and you don't want to remove that, you need to come in from below and remove every single netherrack that is on this layer that is we're standing on right here. So you need to come in and basically like come in like, oh, there is like a netherrack here, and remove all of that, and you're in survival, so you can't sort of get to all of them. So there is like pockets. Sometimes you can get a pocket, like, okay, there is a pocket over there. If that is not reachable, then this machine will crash. So you basically need to have this left side flush so that there is nothing over there. So either you do it manually, or I don't know, use the manual dropper or some other method. You can even use banners. I mean, it's just one row of netherrack that needs to be dropped 3 times, so you can sort of get rid of that netherrack. Because with that netherrack, the machine will crash. Bedrock won't be pushed, but netherrack will. As for the finale of this video, I'm just going to show what's been happening on the SciCraft server. Generally, this machine has been running for ages now. There's like at least a month's worth of egg dropping. More, I think it's like 2 or 3 months of egg dropping, and every single strip has like been iterated and improved on. So this is the version of the version 2.0, and the first video I recorded was this strip over here where it's finished already, and I mean, you can see there is a lot of eggs that has been like cleared out even. There's like a tree over here. For each machine I built a tree, a custom tree. And then there is like a strip here that's been egg dropped using the version 2.0, this row over here, and I've actually rebuilt the machine, the 2.0 over here, so you can actually see the 2.0 running right now with my alt. He's actually running. I'm gonna stand here and just see how he sort of works. You can see down there now when he's passing by, those pistons will fire down below and crush the eggs. You will never see the eggs dropping, but I mean, you can just imagine. There is a line of the lazy chunk detector down below detects, and above, basically. The lazy chunk detector above detects, and the eggs sort of drop. I have to get away from the machine because the guy is actually going to the docking station. I need to stand behind him, as I explained, before he reaches it. Otherwise, it's gonna just cause a bunch of problems. The second he's actually at the docking station, I'm behind him, and after he's docked, I can sort of go back to the machine and look it out, check it out. And we just saw that like those eggs up top just dropped and just crushed the next row. You can come along and just pick up a couple eggs here. It does like waste a bunch of eggs, but I don't care. We're duping them like mad. Every time he passes the docking station, he picks up a bunch of eggs, and there's like a setup for every single time that I want to build this machine. It requires so many resources, like 2,500 slime, about 1,000 observers, 1,000 pistons. Like it's mad. It's just a mad build. I'm just gonna fly off in the distance where the other machine have actually finished its job, and you can see that I've already prepped here so that I can actually record it in a video for when I'm doing this. There is like a row that didn't get egg dropped. It sort of, the machine sort of caused the problem. It didn't cause a crash because the machine have actually been designed so that it can handle a single point failure where there is like a single bedrock it doesn't remove. In this case, it didn't remove an entire row, which is kind of a problem. If there is like two spots that are not being egg dropped, which is like a statistical anomaly, it's never gonna happen. Then the machine will crash. Otherwise, it's very stable. So you just place the sand and just fly off, and then it should sort of, when we come back, those banners should have sort of been removed and eggs should have dropped. And here is the 2.0 actually, the first one that actually finished its job. And you can see it here. It's sort of finished its job and it's removed all the bedrock. It's going to be retired. This one is going to be torn down, and the materials will be reused to build another one. I'm considering actually activating 2 egg droppers and making it so that I can actually drop more eggs at the same time, so there's like 2 characters doing it at the same time, but it's just taxing on my PC. I need to somehow figure out the Raspberry Pi trick. One other thing that I didn't actually mention is all these stupid... Who would have figured? There is mushrooms growing on the roof of the nether. Why? I don't understand. Like, you're not even supposed to be up here. According to Mojang, you're not even supposed to be up here, so... why there is mushrooms on top is just beyond me. Oh, obviously there is problems with fire again. I mean, you will have fires causing problems again. But I figured that it's not a big of an issue that I thought. I use a tool, EDDxample's tool, to actually to remove the fires, which isn't a huge deal. You just go down below into the nether, and if you remove most of the visible nether fires, you can actually remove enough to reduce the areas that will cause a problem. So you only need to remove 90% of the fires, and it should like remove enough fires to stop the whole chunk loading problem where the fires just cause problems. Hopefully you had enjoyed this version of the egg dropping machine, the slimestone version. I think Minerva is working on a different machine that actually requires like less effort to place the eggs automatically using clickers or similar. There is no AFK involved. There is more manual labor, but I mean, in general, I think their trick of placing a bunch of eggs is much more community driven. It's a much more interesting way to actually place a bunch of eggs and melons. Then you can actually remove the melons and let that sort of break the bedrock, which is kind of an interesting trick and a technique to do. Comparing it to this version of the machine where only a single person on the server can sort of do egg dropping. And it does cause a bit of lag because you're still like moving forth and back, loading a bunch of chunks. And it does put some tax on your server, not a huge amount. But if you wanted to, for example, remove 2000 by 2000 using this machine, it would be completely inviable because I'm trying to remove 850 by 850 and it's taking a lot of time. So I mean, it's a different technique that Minerva is working on, which is an interesting way to do bedrock removing. I think I just messed up the machine while I was recording. Well, anyways, it was fun recording, and hopefully you enjoyed this. Someone else might actually build this, so if you actually manage to build one of these machines, do leave a picture or some comment in the comment section. So we might see if someone else is actually interested in these machines. But till next time, bye.